Welcome to Corks Conversation with Faye Snowden.
Yes, Kathy, I am so excited to talk with her today. I just finished her book and I just loved this dark Southern Gothic feel with a serial
know.
killer and set in Louisiana. It's
I know.
awesome.
Look at this cover, you guys. Look at this cover.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's called A Killing Rain. I absolutely adore this cover. Since Faye lives in Northern California, I'm also very curious about why the book is set in this southern swampy New Orleans setting. So that would be really fun to talk to her about.
I know. And you know how I love a swamp, Kathy, but I really like the I really like the Cajun restaurant too. So
Yes.
that was one of my favorite parts.
So before we get into our conversation with Faye and the wine, of course, let me tell everyone about her. This is really a privilege. She is the author of noir mysteries, poems, and short stories. Her novels include Spiral of Guilt, The Savior, Fatal Justice, A Killing Fire, which is a dark Southern Gothic tale featuring homicide detective Raven Burns, #1 in the series. That is the prequel, I guess, to A Killing Rain, which is what we're talking about today, which is the second in the series. This is just released in June this last summer. Faye has a master's degree in English literature. She has been awarded writing fellowships from Jurassic. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes,
and the Virginia Center for Creative Arts. We'll talk about that a little bit later because it's very interesting. Her short story, One Bullet, One Vote, was included in the Best American Mystery and Suspense 2021, which was edited by Steph Shaw and Alifair Burke. She's a member of Crime Writers of Color, Mystery Writers of America, and Sisters in Crime, where she serves as board secretary for Sisters in Crime National. If you don't know what Sisters in Crime is, we will send a link because it's just a fantastic organization for writers. Faye has participated in many writing panels, appearing as a guest lecturer in several university writing classes, and also teaches information technology courses at the university level. Today, Faye works and writes from her home in Northern California. Before we get into it, final thing, I just want to add 2 reviews for this latest work that are so great. Unnerving Magazine said, the book is full-bodied, dynamic characters, tying a brutal past with a bloody present that will keep you guessing right up until the finale. And one of our
Which is
favorites,
true.
Jess Lowry, fantastic author. She's been on the podcast before. She's a best-selling author of Unspeakable Things and Bloodlines, very recent award winner at Boucher Con, which we'll talk about. A Killing Fire left me breathless. Driven by a complex and compelling female lead, the story twists with a heart-pounding, raw energy about a lush Louisiana backdrop. I couldn't put it down. Faye, welcome. It's so nice to have you.
thank you. I'm so glad to be
Yes.
here. Thank you for
Yeah, we are
inviting me.
too. We're thrilled.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know. And well, first off, we just got to get right into the wine because Faye picked a really cool sounding wine anyway, called Ghost Pines Red Blend.
Here's Ghost
And you guys go
Pines.
ahead and have a sip.
Yeah.
Kathy's actually got it. The South Dakota girl got the wine.
That never happens.
I know, but it sounds like such a good wine. I mean, I just was dying to get it. I went to Total Wine to get it, and they were, sold out or whatever. So I ended up getting a different wine, and I think Faye, you ended up getting a different wine
I
too.
did. I was so surprised because it's usually like all in the grocery stores and Bevmo where I shop, but it wasn't. And so I got a Wild Horse, which I've had in restaurants. And it's a type of wine where you take one sip and you call your waiter back over. What was that wine again? So it's really good. It's Santa Barbara red blend, and here it is right here in beautiful
Oh yeah,
cup.
look, it looks nice and
Gorgeous.
dark. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
cheers
yeah.
to you,
I know,
Faye, and
mine
your
is
Cheers.
book.
yeah, cheers.
Second to the second release in this series. Woohoo!
Yeah. Thank you. And what is yours, Christy?
It's Crimson Ranch. And I picked it because it sounded similar in the red blend and from California, but also because I thought it kind of fit the book. Because, like, a bloody ranch, kind of like,
Yeah.
slaughter. We're not going to go into detail, but and it is pretty good. It's got some cocoa notes in it, which I always like. So anyway, so we're happy to start that.
Yes, yes. Faye, I have had Ghost Pines before, and so when you recommended that, I was like, oh yeah, but not for a long time. And I remembered I love it. It is delicious. I hope you guys can both get it again because it is just a
Me
great.
too. It's a great,
Yeah,
it's
me
a
too.
reliable wine too. And usually you can find it on sale like for, like $18, and
Yeah,
sometimes at the grocery store it's 14, and it's a really good wine.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is really good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm
I'm
going to
feeling
keep
very
my
lucky
eye out
today in
for it
South
for sure.
Dakota.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
you are.
delicious. I
You are.
haven't had uh, yeah.
Great. So let's get into the questions. First, I want to give everybody sort of a synopsis of A Killing Rain. So this all centers around Raven Burns. She's a former homicide detective, and in this book she returns to Bird's Landing, Louisiana, and she's hoping to begin this new life after she's had some, I guess, traumatic things that are, she's left the being a homicide detective, but it kind of draws her back in because her nephew is kidnapped by this serial killer, and so she's jumping right back in. And I mean, she's just a great character. I mean, I love the fact that she's got this past. Her father was a serial killer, so that's always playing into things, and just love the setting. And I think you just did such a great job with this setting. I mean, I was turning the pages because I just love that whole southern swampy kind of thing. And so let's just jump right in with that. And how did you come up with this choosing this setting? And we'll start with the setting in Louisiana, because there's a lot of settings in this book, but the Louisiana one is like the underlying one.
Yeah. And someone wrote on Twitter last night, they were looking for Southern writers. And I'm like, I'm a Southern writer. And then after I started seeing all the replies, I started going, wait, because I was born in San Fernando Valley, California. My birth certificate says I was born in Los Angeles County. And when I was 10, my parents divorced, and I moved to Louisiana, where my mother's people were from. And I just always consider myself to be a Louisiana native. But when you really think about it, I'm not. I mean, I was born in California, moved to Louisiana, spent my formative years out there. It made quite an impression on me. And I just consider that to be my home.
Wow.
So yeah, that's why I said it in Louisiana. Yeah.
Oh, so you got a lot of
Interestingly,
family there.
the book does open in California.
It does,
So
doesn't it?
I noticed that. I was like,
Yes.
well, this is really full circle for you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think about because when I moved to California, I noticed a lot of people, especially African Americans, would say, "Oh, I'm from Louisiana. I'm from Texas. I'm from." They seem to be a lot of them, from somewhere else. And then, of course, that's the Great Migration, in the 40s and 50s, and when people start, especially people of color, started to leave the South in great numbers and going to wherever the train was taking them. So in Louisiana,
Hmm.
it was a lot of people came to California, but I still have lots of family back in Louisiana.
So does anybody have a good Cajun restaurant that you base that on?
Oh no, I think that's my dream restaurant.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then somebody said, you know what, Faye? You wrote a dark noir, a mystery, but you have all these cozy elements. And I'm like, really? And I guess they were saying that the restaurant was a cozy element. I mean, the town Bird's Landing is so dark already. And Billy Ray, who was Raven's homicide detective partner, had been through so much as well. And he was like, you're not going to steal my joy. I'm going to create an oasis right in the middle of all this strife. And that's where my idea for the restaurant came from. Yeah.
Right.
That's so
I don't
interesting. I hadn't.
I don't see the cozy though.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of the
I see
cozy
it
element at all.
Yeah, okay. All
Well,
right.
I see the setting is more. I mean, yeah, I guess because they're saying, you know, maybe they're set in you know, people set them in restaurants a lot of times or something. But
Yes.
I think that
Yes.
Yeah.
restaurants, everybody goes to restaurants, so even you know,
Yeah.
serial killers go to restaurants.
I
So yeah,
was, you know, it's
I'm
funny.
not buying it.
I was thinking about the Kay Scarpetta
Oh,
books.
I love
I
those
do too, but
books.
look how food weighs so heavily in Kay Scarpetta's life. This is Patricia Cornwell we're talking
Hmm.
about. So
Hmm.
I was kind of leaning towards that as a comparison, not cozy. So
Not
that's really
coziness.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting. And I will never forget a scene in one of those books where Kay Scarpetta sat down and ate a meal at a restaurant. And Patricia Cornwell described how she just finished every bite. And I was like, dang, I wish I could do that.
Well, you
And I
did.
still remember that scene.
I
Yeah.
think you
Oh, thank
did.
you. Thank you.
I think you did.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So, you were talking a little bit about like, you know, how families have migrated and whatever, and you've said it in the South. And we also don't see in crime fiction, or we haven't in the past as much, is African American voices. And so I love how we get to see a different perspective in this book, and it's right to the detective level. I mean, yeah, we've had, you know, white male crime fiction writers write black characters, but now we're seeing in this one, I liked how how some of the twists and turns and plot lines were based on a perspective that we don't normally see, because it was, you know, I don't want to say too much and give it away,
Right.
but would you like to talk a little bit about that?
I would, and that's such a good observation, because I'm a big proponent of we need all the voices, even voices we don't agree with in crime fiction or any type of storytelling that we do. We need everybody in that conversation, for just the, you know, because we need to be talking about these things. As a matter of fact, I was talking to someone, it's maybe a long story, at work, and he goes, oh man, at my day job, and he goes, I really want to write a book. And he comes from a really diverse perspective. I'm like, write that book. We
Yeah.
need all the voices. And he goes, oh, you're one of those. I say, yeah, I'm one of those. So, yeah, I am. I
You
chase
need a
people
T-shirt that
down.
says one of
At a
those.
voucher con, I would see these young people, people of color, you know, people that you wouldn't necessarily think would be a detective fiction. And they're at voucher con. I'm chasing them all over. Join Sisters in Crime. We
Yeah.
need your voice. We need you. Yeah, so one of the perspectives, and this is the one that I had growing up in Louisiana, growing up dirt poor. You know, we were lucky. I mean, we did have like indoor plumbing, but it was still the shotgun house, you know, not enough to eat and all that stuff, and having to navigate all that. And then there was a very complicated, I should say complex relationship we had with police. So when I sat down to write A Killing Fire and then A Killing Rain, I wasn't that interested in, my perspective, I did not see policemen as heroes. And I didn't see them as straight arrows either. I saw them as, complex human beings. And Raven breaks a lot of rules. I mean, she colors outside the lines all the time. And I don't think, from my perspective, you know, I think it takes a unique perspective to write that kind of character in a subconscious way. And I think that a lot of my experiences that I had comes out in how the police are portrayed in that book. Another thing is, you know, some of you know, she's thinking, oh my goodness, you know, these are why these victims, these particular victims are being killed. And her blackness plays into that, right? While Billy Ray, who's also African-American, has another perspective, right? So based on a black man in America. So that's how it affects America. I know my friend from the Navy used to always say that. She used to say, America. She was from Kentucky. Yeah, so that's, you know, so that's how I think it affects it.
Yeah, because I mean, Billy Ray's view, I was like, wow, where did that come from? But, you know, it's not going to come to my mind. because I don't have
Yeah.
that perspective, you know? So it
But
was
I
really
think,
interesting.
though,
I
that
enjoy it.
readers of detective fiction are going to find exactly what they want to find in the books that they always
Mhm.
seek out. It's just a broadening, which is so exciting. I
Yeah.
mean, that's why you
Yeah.
say there's room for everybody at the table because it just is a different perspective, which is so
Mhm.
cool.
Mhm.
I loved Raven Burns.
Oh, good. I'm glad. A lot of
I
people.
loved her. She's got some baggage.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I
Yeah. Yeah. She's.
absolutely, she does, but so I guess I would say that she is trying to atone for the sins of her father
She
by
can,
her
right?
career choice as a detective
Mhm.
in homicide, which is,
Mhm.
I mean, that is some delicious complexity. That's what I thought. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, so where did this come from? Where did you come up with this idea of Raven Burns?
It is so funny. It's kind of a personal story, but I tell it all the time. And people says, "Faye, I just can't believe you tell that story." I'm like, "That's a good story. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you." So when I wrote that book, the first person that came to me was Floyd, my villain. He almost showed up whole, like a voice in my head. Probably should have went out and got some
Oh,
therapy. So
yeah,
that's
some
that's a
therapy
good
would be good.
share. But Raven took a lot of work. But I also started the book when after I met Floyd, I started the book with a question. And that question was, how much are our parents and us, their moral compass, all that type of, how much does that kind of get passed down, evil versus good and all that. And the reason I kind of have that is my parents had a very bitter divorce, and I look like my dad like you wouldn't believe. I mean, my friends used to say, "Faye, it looks like your dad just spit you out. He just went," and there you were. I mean, we have the same, small features, same body type, everything. And when I was a kid, my mom, would disparage my dad because of, it was a bitter divorce. And I used to look in the mirror and I'm like, well, if he's a no good, son of a
Right.
something, what does that make me? And
What
I
does
would
she
just
see when she looks at
wonder.
me?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so that's how the born from that question, how much of that, what our fathers, our mothers and fathers do, how much of that is in us, and how much of that do we feel we're responsible for.
Ooh.
And yeah, so that's how she came to be fully. I mean, after I had to work on her, I had to like do character interviews, figure out what she wanted, like I think it was Annie Lamont, who said that, figure out what she's like drunk, what is she like sober, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I had to really work on
That's
developing her character.
interesting.
I
Yeah,
love that because her in the story, her dad kind of lives in her head. I mean,
he
he's
does.
very
Yeah.
much there. So why serial killers?
Oh, that's a good question. I get asked that sometimes, but not as much. I just think it's a microcosm of the evil that we do to each other, and I never could, as a society, I never understood it. So when I was looking for the book, working on the books, I thought that would be a good way to portray. I think it's the epitome of evil, and I thought it would be a good way to kind of portray what Raven was battling against and battling, trying to prove she's not. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the
Yeah.
most intense battle outside that she's doing in her work, but battling inside. And
Right.
I think it
Yeah.
is, it just pulls you into the story. I 100% am going back to read the first one now because I would like, so that's my next question is,
Yeah,
how do
me too.
you,
I was like,
yeah, how is she going to evolve over four books? Do you have an idea about that?
I don't know.
Oh,
Isn't that terrible? And then I was like, oh, I've got the third book in my head, and my kids, they're going to school now, and they're like, Mom, in your head does not count. I'm like, I know.
oh, they're so
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, they're like, I know it doesn't count. But she every book she's going to make a decision that is going to be four because it's a series based on the elements, and she's going to make a decision that's going to determine her path forward for the rest of her life in every book. In the first book, she did something, and y'all know what that is if you read the second book. In the second book, she did something. And then in the third book, she's going to do something that's going to drive her. And I don't know how that story's going to end up. I'm a plotter.
Fun.
Like I do a rough outline of what I'm doing, but that internal, like you have the Jess Lowry calls it the A story and the B story. So the A story would be what's happening external to the character, and the B story is what's happening internal with the character. That A story I kind of have written, but that B story is something that I plot that. But the B story to me is more like pantsing, which is like just kind of free write.
That is such a
Interesting.
cool way to think about it, that you plot your plot, the thing that we're here for, the action that we're here for, but then you let the character, how they grow on, like, kind of come to you, is such a cool idea.
Then you integrate, right? Because it's not ever separate. I mean, how you feel about what you feel like on the inside is going to drive some of your actions on the outside as
Right.
well. And it
Yeah.
does
That's why I was like,
yeah.
it's hard to separate it in my head. I'm like, I don't know if I can even do that.
Yeah.
Woo!
Interesting.
She makes some choices, and there's some blind spots. If that she did not have this B story, she would not have been fooled like that, right? Because she wanted to be this normal person. And
So you mentioned the four series are based upon, did you say the elements?
yeah, so you got fire, water, air, and the last one is going to be soil. That one's going to be so fun. I can't wait to.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, let's have a little cheers to this conversation, and then we're about midway. We're going to have a question. We call it the question in the bottle. Christy's going to pull out some random question for you.
So good.
Yeah, mine's good too.
I want to be happy for the rest of the day, and my coworkers are going to, why are you so happy, Faye?
I just recorded this podcast. It was working.
Yeah. Yeah. My day job is pretty intense. So, yeah.
Oh, we'll have to ask you, what is your day job?
I am in IT. I run the program management office for Berkeley. So I have a team of project managers, and I say, project managers, make your dreams come true. So that's my day
Berkeley
job.
University or Berkeley Publishing?
Oh, University of California.
Oh my.
UC Berkeley.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, so sorry everybody later today, but she enjoyed some wine.
Don't call for IT questions today.
Just a little.
All right, so here's this is a good one. Okay. So, if you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you had done?
Murdered my husband.
She did not even hesitate.
Murdered
Did
my
you
husband.
hear that, Kathy?
Yeah.
Is that what you say?
We play. I mean, and I just look at him sometimes, and we're playing like and it'll be usually at a dinner party or something, all the relatives, and he'll make some comment just joking around, and I look at him and I say, they would never find you.
Oh!
They were like, they would never find the body or have any inkling why you disappeared. And then he would just laugh. And then, so that's how, but it was
She is definitely a mystery writer. That's so funny. Oh my God.
And then when writers get together, I spent a weekend with my friend Juliet Blackwell, who writes the novels about the Paris, and we were like walking, we were talking about all these stories we watched on Dateline. It was like, how did they get caught? I'm like, I don't know. Why would you do your research on your own computer? I don't know. Why don't you go to a library? And I said, far away from your home, when in a hoodie, where and avoid the camera.
Oh.
You sit in the owl and read the research. And we went into this whole thing about how to get away
with murder.
And then after a while, we looked at each other and said, this conversation isn't right, is it? And
No.
we're like, no, it's not right.
Your poor husband must be terrified on some level.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay. All right. So next set of questions here. This was so interesting to me. Your bio mentioned the Gerasi Fellowship.
Jurassic.
Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Gerasi.
Jurassic. Yeah.
And it just sounded amazing. You know, we kind of like Googled it a little bit, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to ask her about this because I think our listeners would love to hear a little bit about it and what was your
It was
experience
an
like?
amazing experience. I met people that friends that it's the kind of friends that didn't you wouldn't keep in touch. You don't I didn't keep in touch with them, but I know if I ever called them up, they would be right there. Um, so what it was, it's
Mm-hmm.
an artist colony, and Jurassic, he was integral. I can't even say integral. To founding the birth control pill and that type of thing. And his daughter, who was wrote poetry, I believe. I think she she I don't want to say committed suicide because that sounds like a crime, but she killed herself. And
Right.
he founded the artist colony to honor his daughter.
Oh,
And what it is that you submit your writing to samples of your writing, and there's an application that you fill out to a jury, and it's a competitive fellowship, and they award you to come out there for a month, writers, dancers, composers, and your job is just to create, to give
oh
you
my
space. It's like Virginia Woolf,
Oh,
room of your
see, I
own.
just got goosebumps
Yeah,
thinking about that.
to
Yeah.
give you a chance to create away from all your other responsibilities. So they have you have to do some chores, but in here they had a chef that had all your meals. You met with the patrons, but you gave readings, but your main job was just to create.
wow.
Yeah, that was
So,
awesome.
at
I
what
think I
point in
spent a
your
month there.
career? So you're in IT in your regular life. So
Mhm.
how did you where did the writing germ come from, and at what point did this fellowship happen?
The fellowship, I was believe it was years ago. It was 2005, maybe 2007. I don't even
Yeah.
remember. And I haven't applied for another one because I've been so busy. They're all over the country. Blue Mountain's another one people apply to. It's really hard to get into there, but they have competitive fellowships all over the country. So I started writing when I was a teenager, and
Mm.
I explain it to folks. I just didn't see people like at the BoucherCon when I gave that speech. I literally was trying to write my own story, my own perspective into a body of work where I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. And that's
Yeah.
one of the, I mean, I remember sitting
Mm-hmm.
making up stories about Star Trek, because I love Star Trek. But there was Lieutenant Hura, and she,
Hmm.
did break barriers, but there was only one,
Just
there was
one of
only
her.
one. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted more. I was
And you
very,
know what really it was beautiful when she passed recently, that it was
yeah,
great the celebration, but I thought there's still only been one.
right.
I mean, they've
Yeah.
obviously made
At
improvements
that
since then,
time,
but
yeah. But
yeah.
there's been progress, but back then I was like, when I was
Yeah.
growing up in the um late 60s or and 70s, it was like it was few and far
Yeah.
between. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I so you've always been writing. So when did you start working on publishing your writing as an adult, or were you always publishing and
I published my first poem with Indiana State University, I want to say, in 1990. No, I published before that. I published in my college literary
oh,
journal, a little short story.
yeah, yeah.
Answers Apart. I still
Well,
remember.
that's great.
Oh,
And then I published the poems here and there. And then in late 90s, I said, hey, I wonder if I could write a novel. And I published my first novel, which I still say, the editor believed in it, and she gave me a chance. But it was really the novel that I learned how to write novels
mm,
on. I call it my baby novel.
mm-hmm.
But I've gotten so much better at craft since then.
Mm.
So yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was stalking your
Yeah.
Instagram page.
You were. I don't
I
post
was,
on it a lot. I need to
and
get better at it.
I had it was just a few posts ago, and you had mentioned that you had maybe recently gotten your own rights back and self published your previous works.
I didn't self-publish them. I got them back. It's like a dog who catches a car. I don't know what to do with them.
Oh, that's
Well,
It's like,
interesting.
okay, now that I caught this car, what the heck am
yeah.
I doing
So,
with
but
it?
you had mentioned that you maybe it was your poetry, and the
Oh,
book had risen in the KDP rankings. Like,
that was different. That was hilarious.
okay, tell us
I
about this.
Okay, so I wrote a what's called a book magnet, and in that, like I put it on KDP for 99 cents or $1.99. And what this book magnet is supposed to do is get people to read your short stories, and you would have some advertisements about your traditionally published work in there because it was
Oh,
hard to advertise
yeah.
my traditionally published work because the publishers have the rights to do that. And I put it out there and I was like, well, that didn't work. And I literally forgot about it. And then, like several months ago, I start getting these royalty, things that show up in my checking account. And I'm like, what is this from? Like 41 cents there, 50 cents there. And then I went out and looked, and that thing had risen in its category for short, 30-minute reads.
Yeah.
It had risen to like number 19, and then it went to number 14.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was hilarious. And then I said I couldn't, I have a newsletter, and I put in my newsletter. My head didn't get too big because numbers, I think it was that number, I was at number 43 or something, but number 77 was something like, why are my nuts in the toilet water? So, okay, my head wasn't too big, but it was just
Yeah.
funny to me how it just all of a sudden started climbing up the charts.
I know, but you know what I
Wow.
loved was
That's
that you
so
wrote,
cool.
yeah, you wrote, who knew? And then you wrote, keep going.
Oh,
And
did I write that?
yes.
Goodness.
And I thought it gave me shivers because I think that Christy and I are both writers, and I think some many people, if you're a writer or just a creator of any kind,
Yeah.
you need to hear that stuff from people.
Yeah.
So, could you
Yeah.
expound upon that and give some of our listeners advice about whatever endeavor they're working on, how to keep going?
Yeah, you've got to keep going. And I'm glad you said that because sometimes I have to tell myself that. What are you doing? Keep going.
Hmm.
I would say to keep going, write. If you can't find 2 hours a day to write, find 10, 15 minutes, to write. And then I would also say that when you have a really good idea for a book or a short story or a poem, and you're really, really excited about it, right? Oh my gosh, you have all this energy, all this adrenaline. You're on the best roller coaster in your life and you're high. I have that when I have an idea for my book, but then the roller coaster starts going down around page 46, 45, 47, 50, and I am just in a rut. I just can't get out of it. I'm like, oh God, I can't believe this book is going nowhere. When your passion runs out, that's the time where, and I think Neil Gaiman said this, you bring in craft. So never stop studying your craft because you're going to need to rely on that when your passion kind of wanes after that initial level of excitement. So that's the biggest one. The other one is take advice. When I first started writing and wondering why I may have been able to write a good first book is because our school systems do things to writers that I think is detrimental. And it's been like that through history, right? The ability to write and express yourself in written communication has always been tied to our worth as a person, right? So you got to kind of separate that somehow and separate yourself from the work that you produce and take advice on how to make it better. Don't have that ego where, oh my goodness, I wrote this and I know it's good and nobody can tell me anything about it.
Ugh.
So that's another, get community around you. But I really believe it's really important to continue to study your craft and be a lifelong learner, and to find ways, just little ways to write every day. Yeah.
I love the
Absolutely.
I totally agree, and I love the be a lifelong learner. We interviewed Jasmine Guillory last week. We always do crime fiction authors,
Right.
but we got the chance to talk to her, and I wanted to talk to her so much, even though she's contemporary romance and not our usual genre.
But her book was set in a winery.
It was
So-
in Northern California,
Oh.
but
Yeah.
she talked about that she was in her other career a practicing lawyer, and that she really missed learning. She's like, I
Yeah.
just missed learning. And I thought,
Yeah.
oh, that's such an interesting thing. And I love that, the continuing of craft, and you can always learn. There's always more to learn. That's beautiful.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. Yep. So, Kathy,
Christy?
do you
Yes?
think
I think it's time.
for
Our last question.
Our
last
final
final
question.
cheers. Yep.
yes, that we ask all our writers, and it appeases our foodies out there. We have our
Yeah.
mysterious foodies out
Yeah.
there.
Who will love your
So
food
which of your
scenes.
characters which of your characters would you like to share a meal with, and what would it be?
Oh, it has to be Billy Ray.
Oh,
And he'd have to cook it.
yes.
And it would be
Of course.
yeah, shrimp Creole. And I would want grits, not rice. And I would want a peach cobbler for dessert. I'm trying to think of my vegetable. I cannot stand okra.
Ugh.
I think Billy Ray would do.
You could have some greens or something, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, green.
With a little andouille sausage.
Oh yes, with hot sauce. Oh my gosh.
Oh.
I keep hot sauce in my bag, swag. Yeah, that was with some and greens. In southern greens, yeah. That's what I would want.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I know. I told Kathy, I said, after reading this book, I mean, we always put out a recipe in our newsletters and stuff, and, I make them ahead of time. So I've got the stuff up there to make shrimp and grits, because I was just like, I need shrimp and grits.
Look what you did.
Because I live
Faye.
in the South, so,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I love cooking Cajun kind of food, so that I'm excited about
Yeah.
that. I'm going to join you and
Oh
Billy
yeah,
Ray.
good.
Okay, so Faye, our listeners are going to want to know more about you. What's the best way to find you? Social media, website, newsletter, what?
Yeah, the best way to find me is on Twitter. My handle, oh gosh. Well, start with my website. My website.
We'll
Yeah,
have it
we'll
on
link
our
it.
Yeah, I find,
on our
and I
show
love
notes.
interacting with people on Twitter.
Awesome.
And then I'm trying to get better at Instagram. I'm not there yet. And then I do a lot on Facebook, because some reason people want Facebook. So
I know.
and
I
I
think
just find me, and
Yeah.
you'll just hear a lot about my grandkids and books and authors I admire. And then on my website is www.faysnowden.com. I have a newsletter that I put out religiously toward the end of every month, I call them gratuitous pics of my grandkids.
Okay,
Have you ever heard
I saw the pic with your son and the baby on the carrier.
Yeah,
Adorable.
Sometimes
Sign up for that, everybody. Just sign up for it.
Yeah. And then I also have what's going on with the book, and then just kind of neat little articles here and there. And I think they're neat, but yeah. So
I signed up today, everybody. Sign up yourselves.
All right. Yeah. We love newsletters.
We do.
All right.
I
Well,
love
thank you
newsletters.
so much.
I know, what a joy.
it's been great. I'm sad we didn't get to meet up in Bashcon, but I'm sure we'll meet somewhere else.
Oh, yeah.
And I think all we have to do is, besides saying thanks, is cheers.
Cheers,
you guys
Faye.
get me in trouble. Chills.
Cheers.